gonna do. I've chosen a radio station, WDRC in Connecticut. We're all gonna call and request Helen's song, and we're gonna call over and over again until their phones explode. Tracy?
Here.
Oh.
It's the snowball effect. You know, one station plays it, the next one will play it, and well, next thing you know...
We're in the charts. All right, let's start dialing.
He scares me so. I want him so. I love him so.
Woo! Yeah!
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Incredibly quiet. Excellent.
Okay, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, welcome everybody. How's everyone going? How's everyone doing? Yeah. I don't expect you guys to answer like it's a concert. It's okay. Even though we just kind of came out of one. I'm, of course, Tika Simone, and welcome, of course, to TIFF, the premiere of I Am Woman, which was amazing and fabulous and so groundbreaking and inspiring. And of course, here is the cast of I Am Woman here today for the Toronto International Film Festival. And I'm sitting here with Andrew, so beautiful. And everyone here on the cast is fabulous. I had an opportunity to meet with everybody. So let's just jump right into it. Like, I have a lot of questions. And I feel like the film, as a Black woman, like, I mean, the film really touched me and it resonated with me really, really deeply. And I'm a musician myself, so to see, Helen Reddy, who really became a 1970s icon and a feminist, like, unknowingly, I was like, wow, like, this is such a groundbreaking, and everything just kind of happened by happenstance. It was almost just like magic, So let's jump into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the Mercury Records Fiasco. What happened there? Like, how did they make such a crazy mistake like this? Because of course she was on Bandstand and she won Bandstand, and then she was told that, essentially it would equate to some sort of a recording contract. And then she gets to Australia with her daughter, who's like an infant, or New York, sorry, with her infant daughter. And it's just, what? Like, how did this happen?
Well, it's based in truth.
Yes.
So it actually did happen.
Yes.
So Helen won what is the equivalent of what you would call American Idol these days.
Right.
In Australia. And she was already a working singer in Australia. She comes from a big family of show business. They were vaudeville performers, her parents.
Okay.
She spent her whole life traveling and doing the circuit. And she really wanted to go to America. And in those days, going to America from Australia was, first of all, very expensive, so she couldn't afford to go. And it was the kind of thing that most Australians didn't do.
Okay.
Now a lot of Australians are making that trip over and following their dreams to do show business in America or something artistic. But in those days, nobody really did that from Australia. So it was really important to Helen that she won this contest. If she didn't win the contest, it would actually destroy her professional reputation in Australia. That she was a professional singer that didn't manage to win an amateur contest. So it was a big deal. She packed everything up. She sold everything. She went to New York.
Wow.
and was really excited that she had this recording contract. And when she got there, she was essentially told, because you're a woman, we really don't have much use for you. So enjoy the city and go home.
Without any money.
Well,
And have a nice day.
I think they just expected her to go home.
Wow. I don't even know how to respond to that, but all right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, seeing as despite the fact that it didn't work out in that capacity, it ended up working out for her regardless.
Yes, because within 5 years, Helen had become, you know, had 3 #1 hits in a row in the same year, and which that's the first time anybody had done that since the Beatles in America.
That's wild.
She had her own television show. She was the first Australian to win a Grammy.
Right.
Yeah, so she really fought against all adversity.
Yes.
And managed to fulfill her dreams.
I love that. Tilda, how was it for you to play this role, and what did you have to do to get into the body of Helen Reddy? And are you a shower singer, or can you actually sing? Like, what's going on, sis?
Very good questions. So the first one was, can you say the first one again?
How did you get into the body of Helen? Like,
Get into the body of Helen.
know?
So that was a really big process. You know, it's an amazing opportunity to be given the chance to play such an extraordinary woman. I think she's so inspiring, and going on this journey of making this film and researching her has like deeply changed me. Like, she's really so inspiring. So it was a big challenge and big shoes to step into. So I did a lot of reading, first of all, read her book, watched every interview possible, learnt all the interviews off by heart, could still do them for you today. Okay. I watched all of her performance videos. And then I went through, obviously, then looking at the script and sort of we were making a version of her life. Obviously, we were fitting 20 years into an hour-and-a-half movie. So it was a big process of all of that stuff. And it started sort of out as mimicry, you know, of trying to copy endless hours of watching her videos and trying to replicate that within my body. Right. And some of that started off way over the top and slowly sort of found its way into me. I spent a lot of time thinking about her voice. She has, as we're both Australian, but she has a very different voice and a very different pattern to her speech. And it was just a different time. People spoke differently, so that was important. And we also got the great thing of being able to show someone aged 20 years. So it was really important to me to sort of spend a lot of time thinking about how her body shifted in those years and how her voice changed in those years. That was a really fun thing to be able to lean into. I did a lot of work with hair and makeup, and costume were a big part of it too. Like, we spent hours and hours doing costume fittings. Yeah. I had fake teeth in, I had a fake chin, I had like wrinkles, fat suits, we did it all. So that was fun, and that really helped find parts of her. Like, sometimes you put on an outfit and go, oh, that's why she stands like that. Or like, oh, her hand always hangs like this because she's always holding a mic cord. Like, there was a whole lot of things that sort of started to find and make sense as we went along that journey. Wow. So I worked with a movement coach a bit and a voice coach, and we sung for hours every day for the weeks leading up to the shoot. And we had an amazing opportunity to have about 4 or 5 weeks of rehearsal time, which is so absurdly rare in film. It was so essential for this. I don't know how I would have done that without that time.
Camera tests. A lot of camera tests.
Yeah. And then the singing, definitely a shower singer and a car singer. That part of the process is really interesting too. So we started, what was so great, it was all of it was built around trying to get the performance is such a big part of the film. Right. And they're the performances that we all know and love, but they also really represent big moments in Helen's life. Yeah. They are put in the film in a way that is meant to amplify, you know, where she is emotionally in her life. So it was really important to get those all feeling right. So I got the chance to sort of create all of these performances with Undue and then perform them on the day live. And then after that, they sort of did a lot of work using Helen's voice and an amazing artist called Chelsea Cullen to sort of create the voice of Helen that we all know so well.
Yeah, Chelsea did an excellent job too, the voiceover actress for
Yeah,
Helen's voice.
And the reason why it works so well is that it's all focused on Tilda's performance. So we really kind of worked everything around what we were capturing of Tilda, you know, doing those emotional moments in those songs.
Yeah. I want to chat about Jeff Wilde a little bit, you know, Evan. So, I mean, you know, not the biggest fan of Jeff, but it's complex. I think it's quite a complex situation. And I'm just curious, like, I mean, the 1970s was like a pivotal time for change, and I think that patriarchy was quite rabid. Do we feel like, you know, Jeff was kind of responsible for a lot of Helen's success, but, you know, synonymously a lot of her pain? Anybody, really?
I think what's really interesting about Jeff in the story is that for the tragedy of the relationship to work, it really had to be a love story to start with. And that's what we all talked about, that, how it is essentially quite an extraordinary love story, the bond that these two had and what they were able to achieve together. Exactly. And I think what's really interesting about Jeff, when I first met Jeff, I'd been working on the script for about a year, and then I get a telephone call saying, Jeff wants to meet you. And I hadn't met him at that point deliberately, because I really wanted to make sure that we were telling the story from Helen's point of view. Of course. But I went to have lunch with Jeff. It was 1 o'clock. I left at 7 o'clock. And he talked nonstop the whole time. For those 6 hours. But what was really extraordinary is I walked away and thought, what an incredible person. Because he is challenging and he is difficult, and he is also, I can see how he can be very annoying, but he was so charming and so charismatic. And I have to say those 6 hours went really, really fast. And they were traits that we talked about a lot about Jeff. And you met Jeff, didn't you, Evan?
I did meet Jeff, yeah. And every time I would talk to him on the phone, it would be at a minimum of 2 hours. He loves to talk. He loves to tell his story. He loves to go on tangents. He's very charming, very funny, can be very crass at times. Right, of course. But ultimately, I always say he's a sheep in wolf's clothing. He loves his family more than anything, and I think was really rooting for Helen from the very beginning. Wow. So, yeah, he humanized the character a lot once I met him. And we went and got a mani-pedi. He gets a manicure every week since he was 13. So, yeah, he's a very interesting guy. I've never met anybody like him. Wow. Yeah.
And for the story, to understand the story, you need to really understand why Helen was with him. Yes. And why she was in love with him. Yes. And I think that Evan captures that really well.
Very well. Yes. So I want to talk to Danielle a bit. You know, you played Lillian Roxon, who, of course, is a mother of rock and roll, and you know, of course, passed away in the late 1970s. How was that for you to play like such an iconic figure? And I also was curious about the friendship and the relationship between Helen and Danielle, which I thought was so beautiful and so authentic. And, you know, you had the rent party. I didn't know that people were doing rent parties in New York back in the day, but, like, it was just beautiful to see, you know, you going out of your way for her like that. How was it for you to encompass this body? And do you feel like Lillian, was devalued in the friendship?
That's interesting. I haven't been asked that. It's always intimidating taking on a real person, regardless of whether they're alive or gone, because especially someone that had such a presence like Lillian and affected so many people, she knew everyone. Like, the more I researched, I was like, wow, this woman just was the most connected person in New York, basically, and Australia. It's like, it just was far and wide. But I did as much research as I could. And you kind of just try to honor what you know, and the stories that were told about her, and her charisma, I guess. She's a lot cooler than I am. That's what I kept thinking on set. I was like, yes. she's just larger than life and like very cool. And I was like, I don't have this. I need to like find this. But I think with the friendship between Helen and Lillian, I mean, Tilda and I got along really well, and I think that's always really helpful.
Very helpful.
Very helpful. We had like tea and cake parties.
I have to admit, I was a really big fan of Danielle's before I met her. I was obsessed with patty cakes, and I felt a little bit like the relationship of Helen and Lillian in the film was quite similar to also you and me when we first met. I was really nervous.
What?
Yeah, that's true, actually. I was there when you guys first met, and you were giving her really great advice. Yes.
Oh God. I didn't even realize all this was going on. Well, okay. There you go. There's the basis of it.
Just have to accept it.
But it was kind of beautiful because Lillian came out in her early 20s to New York, didn't know anyone, and made this name for herself and made a life for herself out there. And then I think it's amazing that she took Helen under her wing and helped her get started as well. I think it was beautiful. And I don't know if it was devalued. There's not. You would be the best person to ask that question, answer that question. 'Cause
Yeah, it was hard, right?
you spoke to
I think
Helen
what's
most.
so beautiful about the story, and Emma and I spoke about it a lot when we were working on the screenplay, is that their friendship is what created something really powerful and strong in this song, because without Lillian to guide and to push her and to encourage her to really write from her heart, and as an artist, as you know, whatever is authentic is what really resonates for people. So without that, I think the song probably wouldn't exist. And I love the fact that at the core of this movie is a beautiful friendship of two women. But there is a great misunderstanding. And it's a tragedy, but I think that it really stems, as most of these falling outs do, it's from misunderstanding.
Totally.
And there's always two sides to a story, you know, like she has children, she's traveling, and a husband, and this industry is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, of course, communication is going to be a little more lax.
Yeah, and she also had the same issue with Linda McCartney, right? Like
She
it
did.
was just
There are stories about Lillian, and it's if she loved you, she loved you. If she didn't like you, everyone else knew too.
Oh, I like that about
She was a strong
her.
personality.
She's sassy.
But at the end of the day, Lillian is really, in the movie, I really think that Lillian is seen through Helen's eyes.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, there is so much to know about Lillian, and we weren't able to delve into it in the same way because this is a movie about Helen. And so the representation of Lillian Roxon in some ways is very much through Helen's eyes. And the research we did about Lillian was, we didn't go out and in the same, I researched and interviewed so many people about Helen, but we didn't do the same for Lillian because we built Lillian based on what Helen had told us and what was important to Helen.
Yeah. Well, she came off as one of the most beautiful women, and their relationship was quite lovely and charming. Like, she would have gone back to Australia had it not been for Lillian. So I think that's a beautiful thing. The song, I Am Woman, is both like a strong song of empowerment. Do you feel like Helen was like unknowingly manifesting her safety and autonomy with that record? Because that's what I drew from it. I felt like, we talked about prophecy and, the power of song and just understanding that music is probably our most universal language. So you can always use music to propel yourself out of something or keep yourself in something. So I feel like, despite the fact that she was in this tumultuous relationship, I feel like the I Am Woman record really, manifested her way out of something difficult.
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how Helen would feel about that, but in terms of how I approached that, or the research I'd done about her finding that song, is she always talked about, she just learnt about the women's movement, and she was trying to look for songs that represented the change in her consciousness. And there weren't any for her. And there were all these songs on the radio like Born a Woman that have ridiculous lyrics, or I am woman, you are man, I am weak so you can be stronger than, and there was all these songs like that. And she talks about always coming from such a strong community of women, her family, or like the women in her family were so strong they all lived through the Depression, and she realized there just wasn't songs for them. So that's what sort of she claims to have been the thing that really drove her to write the song. Whether it's what you were saying about how she, if it was something more than that, I would be intrigued to ask her that question.
Yeah, I would love
Yeah.
And Lillian always told her to write what she understands. And I think that's the best advice you get as an artist in any field, is to do something that is authentic and that you understand. And ultimately, that's what resonated for Helen, is that she wrote lyrics to a song that really reflected who she was at that time of her life and where she was as a woman. We were just talking, you and I, about one of my favourite moments of the film, and I think it's when she's sitting in the car. She's gone and bought the milk after Jeff's yelled at her about not having enough milk in the house. And she goes and buys the milk, and she sits in the car, and she just looks ahead, and she sees just ordinary women, being mothers, being friends. And I really love that moment because it really speaks a lot to the things that she was influenced by. They were the ordinary things about being a woman.
Yeah, totally. I grasp that too. And that moment was really small, but really huge in the same respect. And I think she needed that. She needed to remember and remind herself that despite the fact that she's a homemaker or just a homemaker, she's so much more than that. And all of those women were so much more than that. Was Helen ever able to recover financially from Jeff's blunders?
Well, in the movie and in real life, there was a financial devastation for them because Jeff had entrusted everything to a financial manager, and they weren't monitoring it, and it did give them a financial devastation. Helen did work really, really hard, after which she did pay off all her taxes. And she's in a really good place now, but we don't really deal with that in the movie.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that we were delving into.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I personally was familiar with Helen Reddy, but I wasn't sure until, of course, Pete's Dragon. And then I realized who she was, and I'm definitely showing my age. But I loved her in that. I loved her playing Nora. And the entire cast, I was just curious, how has this movie changed your perspective on women's empowerment, or just the patriarchy or the women's movement? How has it changed you or shifted you?
If I can, I'm not the cast. Well, actually, I'm a tiny little person in in the final scene, waving, going as an extra. But sorry, now I've forgotten the question because I was getting so excited. Yeah, women's empowerment. For me, I think, for all of us in the journey of writing the movie, some of the things that you were writing to come out of Helen's mouth or Lillian's were surprising, that Helen still had to clarify what it meant to be a feminist. And so that it feels like we're still having those conversations, that Helen would be saying back then, this is not necessarily the music that women want to listen to, and it's time you men listen to what we want to listen to. And so I think that was interesting, of feeling the resonance of fights that we are still having, creatively and more broadly than that. So, seeing where we've moved, but seeing still where we have to go, I think that was a big part of the journey of going, oh, I could have said that last week, So,
Totally. Yeah. What about you, Evan? I'm curious to hear how it's changed you.
Well, I think I'm just excited for people to see this movie because it's sort of. I was talking to Tracy last night, and she's just so excited that people get to see Helen's legacy sort of revamped, and it's like.
Sorry, Tracy, meaning Helen's daughter.
Tracy, Helen's daughter.
Oh, that's
yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, it was surreal. Yeah. But it is very exciting that Helen's legacy gets to be revamped for a whole other generation. And it's incredibly empowering and incredibly moving. And I'm just excited for people to see that.
Last night at the screening, we just had such beautiful audience reactions. It was so powerful, and so many women were coming up and talking to us afterwards. And I was telling Tilda that I had as I was coming out of the theatre, I had a girl in her 20s come running up to me and tell me that she came to the movie because her mother wanted to see the movie and knew Helen Reddy, but she'd never heard of Helen Reddy. Right. And she couldn't believe how much she loved the movie and how much this movie spoke to her as a woman, as a young woman in this moment of time.
Yes. Yeah, but I think it's also interesting that during the process of making it, there was that moment where Anjou was pretty convinced that America would have its first female president. You know, that this film would be being released, whether it was 2019 or 2020, but that it would be under the first female president of the United States. And that everything that had happened, the empowerment and what Helen had sort of begun, is sort of culminated in a way in this sort of moment. Instead, here we are, you know. And it's relevant for a very different, very different reason.
And I really hugely felt that, to go back to that question about what it made me think about in terms of female empowerment. I mean, I grew up in a family that was so supportive and everything was equal, and still learning about this story, it's made me confront so many of my own ideas of womanhood and feminism, and it was such a huge journey for me, and it changed me so much. And I mean, she's so inspiring, and if this film can do even like a smidgen of what it has done for my life personally, I mean, I think it would be incredible. The confidence she had and the authenticity and the bravery to stand up for what she believed in was so amazing. And having to also just go back and look into the past at what's come before us and honor what's come before, I think is so important to do more of. And, you know, when you always talk about how when you started writing this film, I mean, Me Too at Time's Up wasn't a conversation yet. And now it is. And it's so, I mean, it's such amazing timing that this all happened now. Yeah. But Helen was talking about so many of those things back then. And what's so amazing, I think, sometimes when you feel a bit stuck or, you know, we don't have a first female president of America yet, that, you know, when you look back at where we've come from, there's been huge changes too, and that's really inspiring and empowering, and it gives me so much hope. And these movements like Time's Up and Me Too, you know, I feel like that Pandora's box has been opened now, and we can't back away from that now. And it feels like I find it a really exciting time to be a young woman in this industry. Yes. It feels really like there's so many doors open. You see so many women around me doing all these amazing things and paving the way, and it is, I don't know, it feels exciting. It makes me feel like I could be a part of that one day. I always feel like Helen for me is like what Lillian was to her, that, you know, she taught me so much about the woman I wanted to become. It's made me want to go and write things and make things and tell stories, and that's been so empowering.
Yeah, like just not limiting yourself to anything at all. That's kind of like what I got from this movie, is just like not having any restrictions as a woman. And the one scene that really resonated with me was when she harassed Jeff to call Capitol over and over and over and over again. And, you know, she was able to somehow finagle a record deal just so that he would stop calling. Is that true to form? Did that actually happen?
It did happen. It didn't happen. It happened over several months in real life. We trunk, which is even more, which would have been even more harrowing for Capitol Records. But I have to really admire that in Jeff, is that Jeff is so persistent. Yeah. And I thought that Evan captured that so brilliantly when we were shooting it. Just how he was trying to use both his charm, his intelligence, his humor, but overall his persistence was just relentless.
Yeah, it was a beautiful scene, and also when at the end of the movie, like, I mean, towards the end, when he, I think she fainted after seeing him, like, you know, go through his rage. How was it for the children, living and coming up with Jeff and Helen and coping with, obviously, their mother being a full-time working woman and their father having to juxtapose working and then also like struggling with the drug habit. Like, how are Tracy and her son as well? Jordan, yes.
I find it really amazing to know that Helen had some of her greatest, in fact, she had her greatest successes all when she had 2 children. Yeah. So she hit number 1 with Iron Woman almost at the time that Jordan was born. Right. And one of my favorite shots in the movie is when, Helen is singing Iron Woman and she's actually pregnant. Yes. And it would have been incredibly, incredibly challenging. And Helen acknowledges how challenging it was. Yeah. Because she was doing a show in Vegas, and in order to be able to be present as a mother, she would fly home every single night, and she would wake up with her children, take them to school, pick them up from school, and then fly back to Vegas to do the shows. So I think it was a very challenging time, as it is for any working mother. But she and Jeff were both very, very devoted to their family, and I think that we don't really in the film show all the challenges for the kids. We hint at them, certainly because Tracy talks about the fact that she's not there for graduation. Jordan gets to witness something at the end of the movie, which could be really devastating for a young child. So we touch upon those points, but at the end of the day, the story is being told from Helen's point of view. So it's and the one thing, as Evan was saying earlier, is that Jeff and Helen, and I want to stress both of them, they're incredibly, they love their children so much. They've been incredibly supportive to their families, and they are still both very, very close to both their children. And in fact, the whole family has been involved in this process. So, Jordan, very early on, is the person who helped me convince Helen that it should be a movie, not a documentary. Oh, wow. And Tracy has been with us for many years on this project. She was at the screening last night, and her daughter Lily is in the movie. That she's Helen Reddy's granddaughter and sings our original song.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and and Jeff and Helen, of course, have both been involved, and all 4 of them have seen the film. Yeah. And Rose and I decided during the editing process that it was very important that we did not complete editing the film without their blessing. Yeah, so they saw it, and I think it's really wonderful that they didn't look for the things that they could change. They just really embraced the story that it was. Yeah. And it's challenging, the movie, for them. Yes. And especially for Jeff as a character, he really he goes to dark places. Yes, and he could be judged. But I think what's amazing about Jeff as a human being is that he really owns the mistakes that he made. Exactly. And he acknowledges those to this day.
I love that. I think that it's just so important. Like, I mean, you can't really reconcile everything, but I think that at the end of the day, if you're able to walk away with a sense of peace, and solace within yourself, I think that that's truly what unconditional love is. And that's what this movie really speaks to. So I was just curious, do you guys have any other last comments that you want to make about the film personally? Like, I thought it was fabulous. I got super emotional. I mean, I'm naturally just a suck, but but I got very emotional so many times, and it was such an honor to learn about her, because I didn't know that much, and I find it very interesting that she was able to maintain a private and quiet life despite how large she was. She was very, very famous in the 70s.
And yeah, I think certainly for me, coming on board as a screenwriter, Unju and Rosemary invited me to be part of this project, and it genuinely, I know we bandy around as a dream come true, but it actually was, and I'd always wanted to tell a music story, and then to tell Helen Reddy, who was so iconic, but like you say, yes. But in a way so little was known about it. So it's a gift, I think, as a screenwriter, to be able to take the audience of that journey to really uncover and to discover Helen along with you. So I'm really it's been gratifying to see, and then to inspire people to want to learn more about Lillian, to learn more about Jeff, because there's only so much we can do in our 1 hour and 50-something minutes, yeah. And those choices that they make, very judiciously, that speak to the story, that honour the relationships, and as Unju was saying, that was so important, that the work be meaningful for the family as well, and honour the integrity of it. So, yeah.
I think what's interesting about it is that Helen wrote a song that inspired a generation. And if this movie can just continue the conversation that song actually impacted and has kept going, then we've done something. Art can't change the world, but maybe we can just change it a little bit, just open up. This is part of our conversation today. And I think that, I hope that we've done a job at that. Yes. That's what I really hope the film does. Right.
Just broadens the scope a little bit more. And that's totally what I get.
And it was so great last night to be able to screen it here at the Toronto Film Festival.
Yeah.
Which we've all had different experiences at Toronto. We love Toronto. We love this film festival.
That's great.
And it's really evident in the audiences. I mean, how amazing was it to see the audience reaction last night? It was so beautiful. And, it made the whole process of all the work that we did, and everyone sitting on this stage did incredible work above and beyond, pushed the boundaries, and we saw those results last night. It was really exciting. So thank you for having us.
No, it was, I would love to have you all the time.
I'm a woman too.
The concert too yesterday on the street. Like, I saw everybody singing the records, and everyone from young to old, they were just all, resonating with the record. And I think that speaks to the timelessness of what she was saying, and just like how classic she is, she's just timeless. And I think that's so important nowadays that we have that. Great job, everyone. You did fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
All of you.
So thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience, or anybody that wanted to pose any comments, questions? Yes, of course.
Hi there.
Hi, how's
Josh.
it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
It's Josh Freeman at cp24.com. This is a question that's open to anyone. There's obviously a big conversation going on at the moment about the representation of women in all areas, but particularly in show business. And I'm just curious if there was a conversation about how you wanted to dialogue with that, or if you wanted to dialogue with that in this film.
Yes, absolutely. We did actually, I think that's why we wanted to tell Helen's story. We actually, in a way, have used Helen's story as a vehicle to continue that conversation. I think that's what my comment was inferring before, is that she wrote a song that impacted a generation, and we've taken that, we're sharing her story, we're telling, we're allowing people to know her name, and people had forgotten about Helen to a large extent. She has a fan club, but she didn't have a broad, people had sort of put her over there. We're trying to put her back in the light, and that light talks to women's representation in music, women's stories being told, and the fact that it's been written by a woman and directed by a woman is really, really important for us. And we hope that the way the story is told is impacted because it's been directed and written by a woman as well. So I think that the film itself is giving you that, I would hope.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? No? That's it? Okay, so we're going to wrap it up then. Thank you, everybody, for being here for the I Am Woman press conference, and thank you to the cast and crew and everybody that was a fantastic part of it. Please, if you get an opportunity or a chance, or you haven't seen the movie, please definitely see this movie. I think it's going to be a classic for sure. And thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and you were wonderful. All fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.